Prof Nirmala Gopal is a criminology lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and we talk to her live now. Prof, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. We heard quite a bit of detail today around the work of what has been the political killings task team, but specifically what precipitated, the conditionalities that precipitated this commission to be set up in the first place, and of course linked to the interministerial committee that was set up by the president. And of course we understand what the context of the country was around 2017, 2018 and 2019 around the spate of political killings, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, the problem hasn't entirely gone away, but has the presence and the work of this political killings task team bettered the conditions in KwaZulu-Natal pertaining to political killings?
Good evening, Oliver, and good evening to your viewers. Yeah, I think, let me start by saying that the commission, this commission, and as I heard the previous speaker mention, the fact that the rules won't be, the rules are not as stringent as when we have this entertained in a court of law, etc. I do believe that, this is such an important commission of inquiry. And before I come to answering your question, I think this is such a critical time in the history of South African, not just politics, but in terms of the rule of law in South Africa. And I think given that the rule of law has been undermined over a number of years now, and especially over the last few years, I think this is just so critical in terms of reinforcing and re-establishing what our criminal justice system is actually going to mean for the democracy in South Africa. So, yeah, on the whole, I think it's a very critical time for us in South Africa.
Yeah. To the question, though, political killings, of course, has been quite ubiquitous in KwaZulu-Natal in particular. Of course, there are spillovers into other provinces. But and we've heard about the successes of the political killings task team. One of the things that the commission will have to determine was whether or not the decision by the minister was a rational decision to attempt to disband this commission, this political killings task team. Now, it would seem irrational if this thing has been highly successful, not just in prosecuting successful cases of political killings, but also to mitigate or to bring to a close or a standstill the spate of political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. Reflecting over the last 6 to 7 years, do you think it has perhaps made a dent towards any of that?
Definitely, and I think your choice of the term rational cannot be more accurate in terms of the decision by the minister. Definitely, we've seen that the task team was generating some really positive results. And I think those, the outcomes of that task team was showing us that the importance of the task team, but also was able to expose the criminality, the corruption that General Mkhwanazi speaks about all the time within the justice system. So, I mean, I find it so interesting that the minister would make a decision based on the fact that he had evidence of the successes of this task team, and yet believe that he is above the law and go ahead and shut down this task team, despite the fact that we have all of this evidence proving that it was successful in terms of its mandate.
Yeah. Now, what was fascinating is that the original press briefing by General Mkhwanazi on the 6th of July that, of course, brought us to this moment, led us to put the spotlight on figures of the underworld, such as Vuzi Cat Madlanga, for instance, who is currently on trial and was denied bail today, and, of course, what are considered political associates of certain political actors, like Brown Mkhotsi, for instance, who seems to have been an important interlocutor between criminals on the one hand, or alleged criminals on the one hand, and police and political officials on the other hand. Now, what we're learning here is that there is a very complex network of actors that make up what is considered the underworld here. What is it that we need to be looking out for, and what is it that we need to be listening for to make sense, to draw the right dots, to understand the complexity of the crime that we're talking about? Because it's not a singular crime, it's a variety of crimes inextricably linked into each other, it would seem.
Yeah, I think, realizing that this is just such a complex matter, and complex by virtue of the fact of what's been happening around us in South Africa, both in the underworld but also the exposed world. And I think that when we find the fusion, we realize how much more complex it becomes, especially in terms of the fact that we expect those whom we elect to lead the country, lead it ethically, lead it credibly, who have now joined so-called forces with the underworld. And so I think it's such a difficult task, I would think, for the Madlanga Commission, but also knowing the fact that there is a responsibility to the electorate, and for the electorate to make sense of it, I think it's going to be important for the Madlanga Commission to disaggregate in a way that makes it digestible for the majority of South Africans, because this, I think, is a make or break in terms of how we move forward and the kind of confidence that our electorate, but not just our electorate, the international community, the kind of confidence that we should be able to restore through the findings and, of course, the recommendations and how we would deal with that going forward.
Yeah. Prof Gopal, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insights. Really do appreciate it.